another CEO Wisdom Pod, round two with Taylor Jacobson. He is founder and CEO at Focusmate, currently in CDMX, aka Ciudad de Mexico, aka Mexico City. Just had a nice breakfast in the park, and this podcast is brought to you by podpar.com. If you want to start scale, be invited to podcast. Just saying, before I get into my point, which was that my views on deep work have changed. Basically, I was reflecting on that. I think it was yesterday. I'm writing an article on insights I've got from talking to 1,000 CEOs, and then I was like recycling my old mindset and framework about deep work, which is that yes, it doesn't work as a CEO, high accomplishing CEO, but I mean, Dennis Havisis, or I forgot his name, the CEO of DeepMind, he does his deep work at from 11 p.m. to like 2 a.m. I think. But that's like an exception. I think these guys really has a complex and amazing brain. And I thought, like, yeah, this is not useful because when you're a CEO, you do sales, you talk to a bunch of people, and you just outsource to AIs. But recently I was like, the future of businesses is two co-founders with 1,000 AIs. So what are these co-founders gonna do? They're definitely not gonna code as per se, but they're gonna think deeply about stuff and about systems that they can outsource to AIs, and then the AIs will execute. So AIs, I don't think they'll get to the thinking about great idea stage up until like 7 to 10 years, and that's somewhat optimistic, but I am like 80% sure about that one. So with that frame of mind, I think there would be a lot of more time to creativity, thinking, and maybe even brain sparring and brainstorming with a GPT that is done through deep work. So I've got like deep in the rabbit hole. Taylor, what short intro, re-intro about yourself, and what do you think about all of that?
Great. Short intro. I'm Taylor, founder, CEO of Focusmate. We are basically a social network that is people helping each other focus. And the purpose of the platform is to book a video call with another member of the platform to keep each other company while you each get stuff done. It's either 25, 50, or 75-minute video call. And again, it's just keeping each other company. It's a very simple structure that we use, where you start the call, you greet each other, you share your goals for what you're going to work on during that time, and then you just mute your video and you get to work on your own thing. And at the end of the call, there's a bell that goes off. You come back, you meet your partner again, you ask how it went, you celebrate your progress, you can save your favorite partners, you can tell us your preferences over what kind of partners you want. But long story short, it's just an insanely powerful but very simple structure to get stuff done. It's changed my life. It's changed the life of many, many more people in our community. We're in every country. We've done maybe almost 6 million sessions at this point in time. So yeah, that's the kind of long and short on what we do and kind of my background and my thoughts on all of that. The first thing that came up for me is I think it actually introduces a question of like, what even is creativity, or what's the point of creativity or productivity, and or deep work. That was really the key phrase that you zeroed in on there. And there's, I think of two very distinct categories. Like, one is I want to make money. I want to have an abundance, I want to have abundance in my life. And so I want to be successful financially, so that I can do the things I want to do. I can, pay somebody to do my laundry, whatever that looks like for each of us. So that's like one vector of why deep work. It's like so that you can accomplish things that are hard to do, if you're just bouncing from one superficial thing to another. that is really different from another facet of deep work, which is like creativity is just intrinsically super fucking rewarding. You know, like when I take myself out for like a evening date by myself to a cute cafe, and my desire on some level is like, I want to just sit there and I want to write something that feels good to create. You know, I want to write a piece of poetry. And if I'm just like swiping on a dating app that whole time, like that doesn't, it's not gratifying in the same way. So that's just to give a current example of like one of the ways I can get distracted from doing some deep work that feels really gratifying, you know, on a personal level. So I don't know, that's what came up for me is maybe the two immediate reasons that I can think of why I want to be doing deep work, but those have very different kind of goals and qualities.
Just that nowadays, knowing what AI can do and feeling productive is just, I know first I feel like dumb because I know that an AI could do like most of my work. I know that the technology is already there. And what I call deep work is not really deep work. It's not the full. I know, for example, okay, like I talk to 15 CEOs a day, so I need to publish all of that on YouTube, right? And click, add description. It's really repetitive. So, and actually I can automate that and I will, but in the future, I would just ask an AI that would be like my assistant. Okay, when we're done, first an AI would do this interview. That's pretty obvious, but that's a bit harder. That one, it is doable, but hard. Second, once the podcast is done, it's instantly published with the show notes and all of that. It's spread out many places. You get an email saying that an AI can do pretty much all of that. A LinkedIn post is made. If then I would prompt, this AI, like if the video has under 50 views, then tell Taylor to promote it on his end or something like that, or remind Taylor to promote it, or do X or do Y. I think that would be the interface. Most of our business would be fully automated backends. Obviously, we need to pay a lot of these companies that would do that for us. So it wouldn't be like free stuff and we wouldn't be like getting rich that quicker. Although I do think that, yeah, sooner or later, like people using these technologies would become overly rich pretty quick. And my thinking is like, okay, that's me, that's my reality. The guy that coined the term deep work, that's Cal Newport. He's an academic. What does an academic deep work look like? A PhD, it's doing a dissertation, researching, so AI can do that again and produce an original PhD that would definitely pass the test. I'm not sure if AIs have done that, by the way. That could be interesting to see if they can pass PhD and thesis tests. That takes months and months and months, and apparently are super good, but reality is they're not, and reality is that an AI could somehow do it. Deep work also for coders, it's like, yeah, crunching a bunch of lines of code. For authors, it's writing books. But what is deep work, and are humans good at that? So again, it's funny because I'm revisiting again in my mind if deep work is actually what we need to do. Isn't it like brainstorming with the AI and being like a filter to this reality? I think would be more accurate to the modern role of humans, and making sure that what the outcome can indeed be published. And if so at scale, we'd be like hitting the approval button, sort of. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think this really comes back to these two possible purposes of deep work. So just like the example of an AI doing this interview instead of you doing it, like I think the only way to make that decision is, what do you want? Do you want to be spending time doing interviews, or is that just a means to an end for something else that you want, right? So like we do a lot of things because we think that's the best way to get what we want. It's like, okay, I want to be able to like rock out on the guitar. There might be some like, okay, I have to like first learn the first four chords, and like maybe not every part of that is really fun, right? But maybe this is intrinsically really gratifying for you. Like
It
you,
is.
if you could just choose anything to be doing with this time, you'd be like, hell yeah, yeah, like this is what I want to be doing. So I think that's the key distinction, because I don't know, our culture, well, you know, you grew up in probably a different culture than I did to some extent, but like our culture is so obsessed with like outputs as opposed to like experience, right? So I don't know, like, yeah, there's one thing which is, okay, we have this new tool that's fundamentally transforming the process of achieving an output, um, and could also make it much more possible for us to do fewer things that we don't like to do and do more things that are just intrinsically rewarding.
I think it's like, and so I would keep on doing these pods because I learned from them. I was about to say I also help people, but yeah, the AI would also help people. So it's really selfish at this point. It would be like, yo, I continue doing these pods only with the best, the cream of the crop, because the rest of these interviews with folks that do not have experience and are quote unquote boring for me, or I can't learn from. I think I can learn from everyone, just that when I'm low energy, I don't ask great questions. And if the other person is also in that state, then it's like a net negative. And that's why I would outsource the interview. I also want to give everyone a shot. I don't like saying no to people. So these folks that are not necessarily on the level I want to, I could use an AI for that. Just questioning, like the need for deep work. I think, for example, let's talk about like any CEOs running like businesses that are highly successful. I think, for example, the podcast, I like it too because I can brainstorm with people and get ideas. But to come back to your question about creativity, what is creativity? If I brainstorm with an AI and if I check my D's and his against, like this version of the reality, um, I think I can get to potential strategy and decide like where the resources of the company should go to, and then deploy a bunch of experiments, see which one works. But in any of that, deep work by definition, I think is a human executing, right? I think if there could be some deep think, that would be more like it, if you could like brain spar and test out ideas. But then what is the value of thinking when you can instantly act on this market? For example, I deploy cold email campaigns on a daily basis, and I test a bunch of product market fit on a daily basis, and that gives me way more of a better idea of where this market is going rather than thinking with an AI. I'm just not sure, or if deep work can achieve anything there. I think it can achieve value in the sense that we take time and we block out, and it's like more focused. And writing is thinking at the end. So
I mean, just kind of grokking your question a little bit more, like, do we need deep work? Like, I don't think about, okay, 1,000 years ago, the human organism was like fundamentally equivalent to how it is today, right? But the tools that are at our disposal are very, very different. So just taking myself as an example, like I know that it is hard for me to really, I'm like the caveman still, right? And suddenly airplanes exist and computers exist, and I'm kind of like standing there at the edge of my cave and like watching airplanes go by and like maybe watching people use laptops, and like maybe I've like, hit my hand on the key a few times, like see what happens. But there's some kind of integration, like psychological integration period and skill development period that we are all going to go through. And it's, there's going to be early adopters and late adopters, but it's like at some point, basically everybody got on board the like airplanes exist. I can use them for things. Computers exist. I can use them for things. Some people use them to a much greater or lesser extent, but like deep work maybe is just, it's just a state of human consciousness that's very present, right? It's like free of distractions such that we're able to use, use our consciousness in a way that's much more productive. And we just got to get up the learning curve of like, cool, suddenly airplanes exist. So what does that mean for how I do my life? But I don't think it's just a tool, right? So I think we just have to get up that learning curve and learn what that state of human consciousness that we're calling deep work or flow, or different flavors of that, what that looks like interfaced with this new tool, which is obviously also like evolving rapidly.
Right. Right now, my days are pretty hectic, like 15 plus calls with CEOs, but I do deep work at night when it's calmer. No distractions. My past CEO life was pretty similar. It was sales calls and calls with a bunch of humans. So think I'm somewhat comfortable with that lifestyle and time management strategy. Just that I think I'm going like all in with one, testing technology on a constant basis. I think we're gonna get at some point that if you miss out one day with some new technology that's out, and yeah, there could be some FOMO in there, but I think that if you miss one day at some point, you're gonna miss like 10 years because that technology is like so scalable and so hot. For example, right now I use Apollo to send emails. I have 35 mailbox connected, send probably around 5K emails a day that are AI optimized. So that is like just an unfair advantage. I'm generating probably 5,000% more leads than the average human. And that's with technology. It's not like with other humans. It's not with two Charles or whatever. It's tech, and I think that's the power of scalability. So I think I'm really going all in on that and potentially building LLMs as well, because once you have that model, that winner takes all model, I do think there's going to be such a thing. Although we could argue against it, I do think that if you have your hands on that, you can have a disproportionate advantage over the market. Now the question is like, what do you do at this point? Because if you tell an AI like, look, make me rich, will it make you a trillionaire and kill like all the other competition in the egg? I mean, that could happen. On your side, like, are you onto these things, like these tools, AIs, or you're still like on the flow state and deep work side of things?
Probably the latter, to be candid. Maybe not for lack of interest, but to some extent, that's sort of like the personal landscape of my life, and like my priorities are more on like my personal health right now, and so yeah, that's kind of mapping into how I'm operating as a CEO right now as well. And it's maybe similar to when the like distributed ownership, blockchain for companies and communities arose. We had a lot of people coming in and saying, oh, you guys need to, issue a token for your community. So yeah, maybe
I
I'm
was
a bit
never
of a,
sold on that. I think that's like, I mean, it's not that it's a bad comparison, but it's just like, yeah, I've never been sold on any of that. And I think there's so much like scammers in that niche. I've had many on the pods. Not bullish. It's just like an aggregate. It's like the Wall Street boys, but new generation. Think reproducing an intelligence is like a completely other game, and doing it at scale with computers, but
I
deep work,
agree.
as you can see, like me, I go from one side to the other in deep work. I'm still not sure what to. I do think there's some value, like in taking the time, blocking a call with someone and just thinking and strategizing and potentially building something more intelligent. Because to come back to the definition of creativity, which we didn't touch on, do you agree that it's like novelty is combining or multiplying two ideas together, maybe dividing them, maybe discovering something new through your experiments? What's your definition of creativity?
Yeah. Well, so what's coming up for me is like I've been thinking about another business idea recently, and I truly believe, like, I agree with you. AI is a fundamentally different tool in so many ways than the blockchain, at least in terms of like how bullish I would say I also am. Like, I don't even think it's possible to be to be bearish on this, but um, as I think about my process around this new business idea, my process needs to involve me getting to a point where I make a decision if I'm going to do this business or not. And that process isn't necessarily anything that AI can, maybe it could be involved in that process in some way. But right now I'm like having conversations with possible collaborators and trying to explore like, so there is a piece of it that's like, hey, can we identify and then test some initial hypotheses, right? Can we like de-risk some certain areas that we would really want to de-risk before we decided we're going to pursue this business idea? And so some of that is like mm, a logical process where it's like, okay, here's the key risk areas where if we don't de-risk those, we really don't know if this is a good opportunity, etc. That's more of a that process can exist separate from me. Then there's this other piece, which is like I have a finite amount of life force, and I have something that I would call like alignment or misalignment. And I want to spend my time doing things that are aligned for me, which is nothing more than like, I just want to do it because I want to do it. Right. That's what we were talking about before. And so like jamming with my buddy a couple of days ago and like unpacking, where we're at around the idea right now and like just seeing how I feel about it. Um, that's a critical part of the process too. And so I don't know, that's what comes up when you talk about like there's a role for just two people getting together and doing whatever they're doing. Because yeah, these tools, as powerful as they are, they like there's like, to me, the kind of the optimal outcome from introducing any tool, and let's say like this is the most powerful tool that we've seen ever, is still just how do we live our lives in a way that we're just getting to spend more of our time experiencing states of consciousness that are fucking awesome and feel good, right? And like, okay, in the last 10 years of my life, the tools that have become available to me have changed my lifestyle in a way that I enjoy my life a lot more than I did 10 years ago, right? And so like I would apply that same framework again here, which is like, okay, it would be kind of silly of me to not take advantage of this new tool so that I can, the same way I like somebody is literally doing my laundry for me today, which I could have never done 10 years ago. What's the next 10 level up or 10 levels up that are available because we're taking advantage of this new tool?
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, human power. We multiply each other, so that is very good. Where can people find out more about you, Taylor?
Love to connect on LinkedIn and Instagram. Those are the two places where I'm at the most.
Cool.